Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
I recently got to spend a few minutes with a young leader who I've known for quite a while. I've watched them rise up through the ranks, and now they're in a leadership position, and well, things are a little bit different. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And if you've been in leadership for a minute or two, or I've been studying it for 30 years, haven't always been in leadership roles per se, but always been fascinated with the power and the influence of leadership. Well, because that's all leadership is, influence, nothing more, nothing less, according to John Maxwell. And I think he's right. But as I've watched other young leaders grow up, there's a phenomenon right now that is really fascinating. I was talking to someone about their hiring practices. And they said, one of the challenges I have is it's really hard to find somebody who's willing to work hard. Yeah, we've got young people today that are graduating from high school believing that UBI, Universal Basic Income, is the right move for the future. That everybody should get a little paycheck, everybody should get a little something from the government, and whether they have a job or not would be, irrelevant. Who they work for, what they do for a task, what they perform as far as products and services to give to others back to the community, that's not relevant. What they really should be getting paid for is being alive. Well, that's a bit of a challenge because if you're not producing income, if you're not providing a service, then you're not actually getting paid, you're just getting sustenance to survive. Which means there's no way to get more. The thing that we know in management, in leadership, especially in retail, is that the more you sell, the more you make. If you sell bottles of drinks or packages of candy or cans of food, if you sell automobile parts or shoes or hats, it doesn't matter what you sell. The transaction that takes place, that's what generates the revenue. More transactions, more revenue. More productivity, more profit. And if you don't have productivity and you don't have profit, then how are you going to pay anybody? And so this, for lack of a better term, delusional thinking that the universal basic income is the solution for everybody really leads us down a path that says your work doesn't matter. How much you do, what you produce, what you present, that doesn't matter. If you're here, if you're alive, if you're breathing, we'll send you money. I love the way Jordan Peterson says it, though, when he talks about this really unique aspect of the human mind, driven by purpose. Driven by purpose. If human beings don't have a purpose, then we begin to lose our sense of bearing for who we are and why are we here. It's an identity thing. It's a success thing. It's a significance thing. And believe it or not, it's a survival thing. You think I'm kidding on that? Think back to all the people you've heard who've talked about, contemplated, or even actually committed taking their own life, committed suicide. And one of the things you're going to find common among them is that at some point in their life, they lost their sense of purpose. Well, I lost my wife, I lost my career, I lost my kids, I lost my family. I lost my ability to cognitively do what I've normally done. And for all the people who've asked for medicinal support or assistance in ending their own journey on this planet, a large percentage of them. Now, Dr. Peterson is much more an expert in this area than I am. I have to listen to what he has to say, but I bet if you went back and looked at the stats of all the people who've asked for a doctor to help them end that journey, you'll find a very similar thing. Purpose. That's what drives them. And when they lose that sense of purpose, they're done. They're ready to check out. That's why a lot of people who retire after a long driving career, maybe it's a military career, maybe it's a medical career, they drive for 40, 50 years, some of them. And then when that comes to the end of the journey in their career and they go into retirement, they sit on the couch and they stare off into space and they feel lost. They've lost their identity because they've lost their purpose. All right. Now I want you to bundle all that together and I want you to ask yourself, what happens when an entire generation is convinced that the answer is universal basic income? I don't have to work, I just get paid for being here. At that point, what is their purpose? What drives them? Now, somewhere between those two extremes, that boomer generation, that greatest generation on earth, which many of them are gone now, the boomer generation, which was raised by them, and then the Gen X and the latchkey kids, but the work ethic was still really strong, a strong, driven work ethic. It wasn't just, can you generate a product, generate a service, generate a profit to keep your boss rich? It was, how do I go and start my own thing? How long before I can build my own business? What am I waiting on to take my investment and launch into something? And as people understand that journey for themselves, what do I want to do? What are my greatest gifts? What are my greatest strengths? What am I passionate about? What am I good at? When we start to put all those things together, suddenly we find that there's purpose, and in that purpose there's profitability, there's productivity, there's possibility. And without all of those things coming together, then the willingness to sit on the couch and munch on chips and do nothing all day and wait for a paycheck, well, it happens. Now imagine yourself as that Gen X person who's like, I'm perfectly happy to work 40, 50 hours a week. I'll take on as many jobs as I have to so that I know that there's money in the bank, so that when I'm ready to go on vacation or repair my car or repair my house or remodel my house, that I have the funds to do it. And I'm not waiting on somebody else to give me that money. I'm going to go get that money. I'm going to go earn that money. I'm going to go pour into someone else's life so that I can add value to them, so that I can get paid for what I do. That gives me purpose and it gives me profit. And that profit becomes the money that I spend to do on these other things. When you've got that kind of person as a boss, who has worked 2 and 3 jobs while putting themselves through school, has raised a family, has done all the things necessary to say, I'm not waiting on a handout. I'm going to get my hands busy to get the work done. That's what's going to pay the bills. That's what's going to create opportunity. When that's your boss, and you've been raised under the mentality that, well, everybody deserves to get paid, everybody deserves an equal opportunity, everybody should have exactly the same level of success results, regardless of their effort, because that's just fair. You have a clash. You have a challenge with that. So as I was talking to this young leader, they lamented just one really simple aspect of leadership. And they said, growing up through my own rising in the ranks, so to speak, from starting off doing what I did at the very beginning, all the hard work, all the way up to where I'm at in leadership. Now, the people that report to me, they often come to me with their drama. And I honestly have a hard time doing it. I'm still studying leadership and listening to other people to try to figure out, what am I supposed to do with their drama? And it's not like I don't care. In fact, my problem is the empathy switch kicks in, and I think, well, I've got to care about their drama, and I'm worried about what's going on in their family and what's going on with their kids and what's going on with their spouse, and I'm involved in and engaged in so many things that have nothing to do with work. And they don't even care about my drama. And on some occasions, I wonder, do I share my drama with them so they realize I got just as much drama as you? Or do I tell them, I don't want to hear your drama, I just need you to focus on your job? Now, this leader's going to have to work that out, because I love the way John Maxwell says this. He said, you've got to have both compassion and candor. You've got to be willing to hear what the problems are, and if you can solve them, but also have to have the candor to go, that's a you problem. And it doesn't have anything to do with work except your attitude and your ability to compartmentalize that and get the work done. And so when you're here at work, I need you to leave the politics and the drama and the home life. I need you to leave that at home until the work is done. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means we've got to choose in these blocks of time what we're going to get done. And in this block of time, for which you're getting a paycheck based on your performance and your ability to produce, I need your mind here. And that's hard stuff. That's hard stuff. That's hard as a boss, as a leader, as a manager, to be able to tell somebody, look, I care for you. I care about you. I care what's going on in your life. I'll do anything that I can on a personal level to help you. But from a business standpoint, from a job standpoint, the drama in my life has to stay at home because I can't work around it. I can't work with it. I've got to compartmentalize it. That doesn't mean it doesn't follow me to work. It doesn't invade my mind and be an intrusive thought. It doesn't mean that when there's a crisis at home, I don't have to take a day off and deal with it. All that happens. But when I'm here, I have to be present. Present of mind, present of emotion. I've got to get the tasks done that are in front of me, because if I don't do them, they don't get done. Simple as that. And what I'm asking of you is to do the same thing. Now, when you're in that kind of a role, especially when you've risen up in the ranks and a lot of the people that you currently lead at one time were your peers, or if you've risen up in the ranks because you've got additional education or a skill set that somebody doesn't have, and this has happened to me, you get the opportunity to rise up in the ranks and realize that you now have people who report to you that at one time you reported to. See, seniority, time in service doesn't always make you the best boss. Sometimes somebody who's going to come along under you who has an incredible skill set that you've tried all your life to master and you just don't have it. And if you're not willing to allow them to excel where they are, you're going to find failure. It happens in almost every industry. It happens in schools, it happens in churches, it happens in small business, it happens in engineering firms. You hear some of the best and brightest minds say, look, it's not my job to know how to do all those things. My job is to know which ones need to be done in the right priority, with the right investment, with the right time. Elon Musk will tell you, he's done coding and he's done programming, but he's not the robot engineer. That's not his job. He wants to understand it. His mind seeks to do it. But there are better people at it than him. And that's why he hires them. The same with Bill Gates. The same with Steve Jobs. The same with Mark Zuckerberg. They have teams of people around them before they reach the 100 million, before they reach the billions, before they reach the hundreds of billions. They have people around them who can do the job better than they can. And as leaders, they've recognized that. I'm going to take all of these tasks and I'm going to hand them off to that individual, because I know they'll do a better job at those tasks than I can do at those tasks. If your arrogance as a leader, if your fear as a leader, if your insecurity as a leader doesn't allow you to hand off a task that somebody can do better than you do, then you have an awareness problem. You have a humility problem. And as a leader, if you don't get those two things in check, you're going to find your leadership not only limited, but possibly destroyed by the fact that you are not yet ready to lead at the next level. If you're threatened at the level you're at, you're not ready to lead at the next level. I remember working for a guy one time, and in that time that we worked together, he asked me some questions about my job. And I gave him the straightforward answers. And he's like, I never would have thought of it that way. And then he asked me some questions about his job. And I gave him some answers. He said, I think you're right. I'm going to have to change that. I never would have thought of it that way. And I thought to myself at the moment, well, then why do you have that job? And it took me a few weeks to come up with the courage to ask that question. Why are you the CEO if I have all the answers you're looking for? And he looked at me and he said, I'm the CEO because I was smart enough to hire you, to realize that I couldn't do it all myself and I needed people like you around me. He said, but you can't do what this person does, and you can't do what that person does, and you don't have the background and knowledge that XYZ does, and none of those are bad. I don't have them either. But I knew who had the knowledge, the skills, the expertise in each of those areas in order to push things forward. That's the difference. That's why I'm the CEO. If you'd known all those people, if you'd known what their skill sets were, if you knew what skill sets needed to go in that arena, then perhaps you would have launched this venture on your own and not me. Point taken. That was 30 years ago. So as we continue to move forward as leaders, we each kind of have our own lane. I know what his specialties are. He knows what my specialties are. And around me, there are people that I look at and I go, you do that a whole lot better than I do. Let me tell you how we can partner together. Now back to my young friend, the young leader. This young leader has great opportunity and obviously great potential. 10 or 15 years in the field, and they're already moving to that place where people are reporting to them and making changes in their lives because of this input and this advice from this young leader. That's going to be a challenge even going forward because they probably have another 25 to 30 years left in their career if they want it. But the opportunity to influence other people, that shifts. It shifts. And there's going to be a moment where your mentality has to change. Or you're not one of the team anymore. You're responsible for leading the team. Now, there are a lot of people who look at a pack of wolves and realize that one wolf who's hungry, the alpha, will eat the other wolves if they don't play along. A Siberian Husky, on the other hand, is less wolf, a little more domesticated, but generally they're team bred to work as teams, and there's a team leader. And then when that team leader gets tired, they may rotate out like a flock of geese do, and that leader comes to the back of the herd to get a little bit of rest and a little respite, and somebody else drives the team for a while. And that management style, that teamwork style, that's a little different than a wolf pack. But in the wolf pack, there's one almost tyrannical leader, and you either do what they say or you get eaten, literally. That drastic difference in leadership and management style, sometimes that's just personality and mentality of a leader. Sometimes it's realizing that what we do is so important that we don't have one distinctive leader. Not a bunch of people collaboratively getting things done. That's a great team. The leader of that team is going to have to be a collaborative leader, somebody who shares the workload and shares the responsibility and shares the understanding and shares the compassion and the candor with either team members. But there's also a place where the team getting the job done and the leader who's responsible for them getting the job done is separate, and a leader over many teams. Each of those positions, The 5 Levels of Leadership is a great book if you haven't read that. The first level of leadership, you lead by position and authority, like the wolf. The next level of leadership, people follow you because they trust you. They see that you care about them and you can do what they can do. The next level of leadership requires a different set of skills. And when you get to the top, you become that kind of person that when you just walk in the room, people are like, oh, yeah, we've seen enough evidence. We know that you're that kind of leader. We want to hear what you have to say. I have a client that's on their way back from Dubai right now. We've been working on speeches and presentations. And one of the hardest things to connect was that realization that for X number of years, you've seen yourself in this light, which means your approach to your audience, your approach to the people that you're speaking to and leading has been very specific in its call and its intent. What you desire to do every time you get the microphone looks like this. This invitation to speak is not that. It's kind of like moving from that level of leadership where everybody does what you say because you've got the title and the position, and into that level of leadership where people are doing what you ask them to do because it's a collaborative work and you're working together. And then moving to that next level where they look to you and say, they have the influence because they've done the right thing for so long. They have the influence because they know what they're talking about, because they treat people well, because they inspire and motivate others to do the job and get the work done. And one day I want to be like that. And suddenly the perspective that you have of yourself has to shift. And that, how do I go from being their friend to being their leader? That process is not as hard as you might think in the task part. It's hard in the attitude part. Your mental attitude about who you are to them and who they are to you is going to shift. And it's going to feel weird when it happens. It's going to feel like you've lost some friends. And you might. There's going to be a place where you realize that the project, the organization, the vision, the highest level of the vision depends on your ability to lead people, to inspire people, to motivate people, to get stuff done. Yeah, for a season, it's about you getting stuff done. If you're not willing to get stuff done in your own life, you're never going to see leadership. But once you begin to get things done in your own life and you begin to get a team that moves along with you, that next level transition to get people to do with you what needs to be done, that takes some cutting off of things and some adding on of things. And then the next level where your job is to get them to get stuff done, that's going to cost you some friends and probably some sleepless nights and then a little heartburn and some tough long days. But the kind of commitment that you have to make to get stuff done through people, that's different than the kind of commitment you make to get stuff done yourself. It's a harder task. It's a higher level of responsibility. But when your higher calling is to the organization, your higher calling is the success of the business, the overall profit, not just your list of to-dos at the end of the day, not just your task list, not just the task list even of the people on your team, but how did you lead your team to integrate with all the other teams that fall in the larger organization? And how did your team contribute with the other teams and the organization toward the organizational vision? Now, depending where you are in that, as the mid-level manager or the highest level manager, are you executing what needs to be executed? Are you doing what needs to be done? The phone calls, the team meetings, the drafting of the goals, the dealing with the drama, the handling the people. Are you doing that part well? Are you training them properly? Are you giving them the resources that they need? If you're doing your role in that and there are still chinks in the armor, there are still weak spots in your fortress, there are still projects and products that are not meeting standards, then you need to be honest and ask yourself, are those things where I personally dropped the ball? And if they are, fix them. It's your job. And if they're not things where you dropped the ball, then you have to ask the real hard question, and that is, who did? And what am I going to do about it? Is it going to be new training for them? Is it going to be a new opportunity for them? Is it going to be a new opportunity for them outside the company? Those are hard things to accept, but they're absolutely necessary. And if you're in an organization where you're just there to get the paycheck on a regular basis and you're not completely sold out to the vision, to the grand vision of what your organization does, I can tell you the higher you rise in the ranks, the harder that set of decisions is going to get. Because when you're really close to the top, and I've been in a position where I served for 5 or 6 years, where there were only 2 people between me and the CEO of the organization of 5,000 people. And at that place, there's a whole lot of coming down from the board, from investors, from the public, through the CEO to that next level. And at that next level, they're making decisions that honestly leave them sleepless, that leave them with heartburn. They're laying people off, they're hiring people, they're ending projects, they're moving funds, they're closing down budgets and opening up new ones, they're trying new strategies. And sometimes those things are at the whim of the CEO, and sometimes those are from the board or from the public, and we feel like you got to make this decision, you got to do it. And everybody who has to work it out is like, I don't get it. This doesn't make any sense to me, especially when it impacts their income or their employment. That is a hard space to be in as a leader. A really hard space to be in. You don't want to go through those rounds of layoffs where people that you worked with as peers early on, they became people that maybe they were leading in another role and you've kind of diverged, but they're still friends. And then you reach a place where those friends work under you. They report to you. You've got to be responsible for their output. And now you're responsible for putting them out. It doesn't get much harder than that, emotionally and relationally. But if you're trying to do that and you're not sold out to the vision of the organization, you've just been here to get a check. You've been here because it's a career and you're so close to retirement, but you're not sold out to the vision or the project. That's going to add to the weight of those leadership decisions like nobody's business. There's going to be a separation between you and your friends the first time you get into a leadership promotion. The next level of leadership promotion, your peer group is going to change. Now you're with other leaders who are making tough decisions. And some of them have been in that role for a while, and some of them are brand new to it, just like you. That's not going to be easy. But each one of those is like the click when you're going up the log ride. It's another click toward advancement, and the last thing you want is to skip that click and go back down. You don't want to lose that momentum of that cog. It's clicking, it's moving you, it's moving to the top. Just be ready when you get to that next click. You're probably not going to have the same friends you have. Not because you're not a friendly person, not because they're not great people, not because you're not a great person, but because leadership demands things of you that friendship can't handle. Just telling you the truth. It's not nice, but it is true. And I challenge you as you grow as leaders, whatever your role is, no matter how many people report to you, maybe it's just you in your organization, but your influence is deep outside that organization. For everyone whose life you speak into, for everyone that you influence, there's going to be a price to be paid in friendship if you want results. And if you only go for friendship, you may have no results. That's going to be a hard truth to reconcile. But as a leader, that's what you're cut out for. That's what you're here for. That's your purpose. I challenge you to stay focused on that big vision, that grand vision, and ask yourself, do I align with it? Am I sold out to that enough that I will invest myself and sacrifice friendships and relationships to see that happen? And if not, might be time to consider something else. And if you're a leader who has mid-level managers under you, or you're a mid-level manager and you're thinking, how do I get them on board with that? Then you should probably check out Story Power Academy, because the types of stories we tell in the boardroom, in the classroom, in the hallway, those stories either ignite purpose and vision in your team or they squelch it. And how you tell those stories and which stories you tell, it's going to make a big difference in how much on-board participation you have in producing what's necessary to see that vision come to pass. As a leader, that's your job. Motivate them, inspire them, direct them, give them vision, give them clear marching orders. That's all on you. And if you're not doing that, they'll find somebody who is. And if you're not doing that, they'll find another vision. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have to replace your team yet again. Get them the skills they need. Give them the passion they need. Give them the purpose they need. Help them to align with the vision of your overall organization, and you will lead long and well. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I encourage you to go to storypoweracademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and see if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the elite speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm J Loren Norris with Story Power Academy. I look forward to seeing you inside.